to imagine all life as you know it stopping instantaneously and every molecule in your body exploding at the speed of light.
Total protonic reversal.
Protonic Reversal.
Protonic Reversal with your host, Conan Neutron. Broadcasting from a secret underground lair in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
A gigantic middle finger to everything that is rock about music, rock and roll, and corporate power.
The thing is, though, if you don't laugh, you're going to go on a killing spree with sharpened nails.
Confidence of a hero or a fool. I wasn't exactly certain which.
Could not be more professional.
It's only one I choose to devote my life to. That's okay.
It means something. It means something.
And take that away.
You know, that's my take on it. What's yours?
Protonic Reversal!
That's like a science thing, right?
Indeed. It is a science thing. It is a science place. It is a scientific fact that we are all up in your face. It's time for the one, the only
Protonic Reversal.
Welcome to it. Chris Spencer tonight, whenever. What day is it? Another special stay-at-home edition of Protonic Reversal. Chris Spencer of Human Impact, Unsane, interesting fella. Human Impact's a relatively newer band. Bit of a stylistic change-up from what the guy is most well known for. Interesting stuff. We'll do the thing where we do a little old and a little new. We'll do an Unsane song, then we'll do a Human Impact song. Thanks, everyone, both new listeners to the show and folks that have been with us for a very long time. There's been a lot of great feedback from all the stay-at-home editions of Protonic Reversal. Of course, you can find the archives at radioneutron.com. If you're looking to get the episodes as they come out, patreon.com/Protonic Reversal. $1 a month gets you all the episodes almost immediately. Never any ads, never any sponsors. So this is a way to drive engagement. It's not compulsory, right? Not compulsory. Calm down. But if you're interested in supporting the show and helping the show grow, that works quite a bit. As well as if you share the episodes around to people, let them know that this is something worth listening to. That also helps. So anyway, coming off the soapbox here. Appreciate all the feedback. Not much new to report. Still in these quarantines, but looking forward to talking to Chris Spencer. Interesting fella. The Human Impact stuff is quite the change up. Anyway, let's listen to a couple tunes. We'll talk to Chris, and here we go. efficient little song called Contact by Human Impact. Kind of funny, that. And speaking with us right now, we have none other than Mr. Chris Spencer. Chris, how you doing, man?
Good. How's it going?
Good. You taking care in these quarantine times that we're living in?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, a lot of guitar playing.
So are you're back on the East Coast now, or are you still West Coast?
No, I'm actually north of San Francisco a few hours.
Oh, okay, cool. So
middle of nowhere.
And, of course, California being a state that's actually treating it seriously rather than some other states that we won't mention.
I mean, it was a little scary. I was in New York working with the guys and left it was like 4 or 5 days in, when they first started having cases there. So it was a little hairy. I got here, had to quarantine for 2 weeks before I talked to anybody, really. And, just to make sure, because there's no way of knowing. So, but yeah, I was in New York at the beginning, and now it's just jumped to ridiculousn's. So. Yeah,
when they have like refrigerator trucks full of
dead bodies,
dead bodies, that's some pretty serious business. That's some straight up Unsane stuff right there.
Yeah, a little crazy.
So I'm really fascinated and into the Human Impact album. It's very cool, very different kind of record than I think maybe people would expect. It's almost it seems like it might be something that's, I hesitate to use the word artistic progression or anything along those lines, but it's certainly a far cry from the Unsane stuff. Was that something where you walked into that being like, hey, we're going to do something different here, or is it just sort of a natural outgrowth of who you were playing with?
Really kind of a natural outgrowth of who I'm playing with. I mean, I knew, I've been playing in Unsane for 30 years.
Yeah.
And thought the last record was good, and I wanted to kind of bookend it and then put it to bed. Figured 30 years is long enough. And I had wanted to play with Jim in a band forever. Like, me and Jim were friends from before Cop Shoot Cop or Unsane. So I had, like, in 97 when Cop Shoot Cop, or around there, when Cop Shoot Cop broke up, I had actually asked the Unsane guys, like Dave and Vinny, if it would be possible to have Jim join us and do electronics.
Like the electronics and sampling kind of stuff?
Yeah, and just more noise, just kick it up.
Sure.
But we were doing a ton of touring at the time, and like over 300 shows a year. And we were really focused and, kind of in a groove. And the guys wanted to stay a three-piece, which I thought was too bad, but at the same time, I understood. So, I wanted to play with Jim forever. And I've known Phil forever too, and Chris for a very long time. So I knew it would be different. I don't want to do the same shit for my entire life. So,
Yeah, I mean, good point. And not to say, that was a pretty good run for Unsane, too. I mean, like 30 years, Jesus. Like, some band are lucky enough to get 3, let alone have anybody give a damn about it, right? I mean...
Yeah. I mean, I feel amazingly lucky to have been able to do that for 30 years, and tour and have a good response, period.
So the Human Impact stuff, it almost... There's more... kind of more nuance to it seems, and there's different sort of tonalities and things that are used within the sound that certainly you could call back to some of the stuff Jim did with Cop Shoot Cop, but it almost has like a similar feel to, like, I don't know, like a King Crimson or
oh wow,
things along those lines. like for feel, not sounding like King Crimson, but just having that sort of sense of scope and scale.
Oh wow, that's very flattering. Yeah, I don't. Like I said, me and Jim have known each other forever, and I used to go over to his apartment and just kind of hang out and listen to all those. I would do like tape loops and stuff like that.
Right.
So that it really opened a whole new world of sounds. And also working with lower dynamics, really just opened a whole new spectrum of stuff that was possible. In a three-piece, when you're just bashing, you're really going for it. And it's all pretty high dynamics, pretty just going for it. there's not really much room for something super low, you know.
Right.
I mean,
just in the tone.
I think maybe
spectrum,
the harmonica on Alleged might be the only reference to like a low dynamic, you know. It's so then you start working with electronics and Jim's whole arsenal, and it really changes things. So stylistically, I also had to change really to work in that, you know, in that mode. So I knew what I was getting into when I started jamming with these guys. And really, it's been great, man. I love being able to do other shit. So.
Yeah, and it's something where when you're identified with a sound, an iconic sound for so long, and you have a, you know, if not worldwide gigantic, a pretty, you know, large dedicated fan base, sometimes people can be resistant to change or anything different or new. And have you found that the Unsane heads, I don't know if there's like a term, have mostly come along to it, or are people sort of...
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it.
Yeah.
It does seem like it, but I realize that it is very different. And I mean, really, you know, I hate to say as an artiste, you know, bullshit like that. But as someone who, as a musician, again, you don't want to do the same shit, and you want to be creative.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to just rehash the same. I don't want to just do the same type of vocals forever. You know, I want to do different shit and change it up. And the door was open, you know, so I jumped right in there.
Well, and I think it depends on what people are looking for. If someone's looking for more of like a sound thing, it's not like there isn't a pretty hefty discography of badass Unsane stuff that they can go to and mine that from. That's, you know,
yeah, there's tons of shit. And I mean, really, you can't. I'm not here to cater to everybody. You know what I mean? Like, I really want to do what is rewarding for me. I got one life, you know.
Right.
So I'm going to do what I want. You know, if I had done that at any time, even, you know, during the Unsane thing, if I had really thought I should be sort of catering to any kind of commerciality, I probably would not have written the songs I wrote. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not here to just try to be popular. You know, that's not the goal here. So,
I mean, do you feel like, was there ever any thought towards like doing like more of a, well, because it's not like you did it under secret or anything, but doing like a more pronounced, you know, final tour, final record. Hey, everybody, you know, here's the trumpets.
No, I mean, no. I'm just not really into. I mean, it was kind of like we did that last record. We did some touring. We did a bunch of touring on that one, and it just had gotten to a point where everybody was in different parts of the world, and we weren't really connected as friends anymore. And you know, it's just kind of like, okay, you know, I don't want to do this for the money. You know, I don't want to. I wrote a majority of that last record by myself, and I was kind of like, man, I want to work in a band again. You know,
right.
I don't want to be just taking the reins on everything. You know. So
yeah, and it's not like you haven't done things outside of that one thing in the past. Like you did the that one band with Nico from Oxbow.
Yeah, Salon. Yeah, the Berlin thing.
Yeah,
I mean that band was kind of a one-off. It really was a one-off. It was really about my friend Ari Benjamin Myers had access to the Einstürzende Neubauten studio in Berlin.
Nice.
And had offered. He was like, yeah, if you come over to Berlin and hang out, we can, you know, we'll just fool around, we'll record there. So that's what that was all about. I actually had a girlfriend who was from Switzerland, who wanted to live in Berlin too, so that was very convenient. But that was really about going to this historic studio with friends, you know, and just making
something cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which ultimately,
it was not,
that's what playing music ought to be in a lot of ways. But it tends to kind of get away
from
it.
Totally.
Sometimes.
Yeah, completely. I know. So, you know, that was kind of for me about a sort of life accomplishment sort of thing. Human Impact is very different. This is the priority band. You know, me and Jim have wanted, like I said, wanted to work together forever. So this is awesome. You know, it's really good to hang out with him and Chris and Phil and just fucking write shit all the time. It's really good, and everybody has a lot of input. You know, it's very creative. It kind of kicked me back into, you know, being in a group. You know, so.
Well, and you guys, didn't you just share a practice space with Cop Shoot Cop?
Yeah, with Cop Shoot Cop.
Right?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, totally.
So it's not like, I mean, you have a long-standing, like, you know what each other does, and you can,
totally.
like, you kind of walked into that knowing that, okay, well, this player might be known for this, but that's not the only thing they can do, and
yeah, and again, like, and we were really lucky in that, like, Chris and Phil had been working in Swans for 10 years,
Swans,
you know, so they were already a super tight rhythm section, you know, and then me and Jim doing, it's really cool to play guitar with the electronics, you know, for me. We can work together and bounce off each other, let him take it, I'll take it, you know what I mean? It's really, it's kind of having sort of two high-end players in the forefront, you know, that it's great. It really has changed things for me. I'm not doing everything on the high end of the spectrum.
right,
you know?
you don't have to be going full bore 100% the entire time.
No, yeah, you know, I'm not. I mean, a lot of times, actually, with this, I have to realize when to sort of lay back, you know, which is great.
Okay, yeah, because you want to leave room for everyone else to do their thing as well, and
completely.
Yeah. So, and I find it interesting that the Human Impact stuff it has it's darker in tone, but in a very different way than anything with Unsane. Like, it definitely has like a dystopian sort of feel to it. I know that there's like some references to like J.G. Ballard, but like even like, you know, like the Hubert Selby Jr. sort of mindset of just like the dark, screwed up parts of humanity, but in a very different, approaching it from a very different way than Unsane, which almost seemed like more catharsis. Flat out.
Yeah, that is a great observation. Yes, that is very true. More about sort of us as people, as a giant mass, than one guy, you know?
Right. one guy, figuratively.
I mean, there is sort of the one guy element to it, in that one guy is seeing all this shit, but but it's not the cathartic kind of one guy angry, you know. So. Well,
and there's certainly no shortage of material these days. Not that there ever has been, but I mean, there's plenty.
Yeah, no, this has been going on for a long time. You know, all the crazy crap. I mean, now with Trump and all the, you know, a lot of shit is coming to light that has been fucked up for a really long time. So, you know.
Were you thinking of bands like Killing Joke and things along those lines when you're coming up with this, or is this something where you arrived at a similar place through different means?
I mean, when I was a kid, I was a big Killing Joke fan, you know, so obviously things like that are going to come to light, you know, in what I play, which I think probably were sort of apparent in Unsane as well, but
different ways,
maybe not,
but,
maybe less so because Killing Joke actually had electronics, so, you know,
right.
I could see where that, you know, is a little more light is shed on that, considering Jim's playing with it.
Yeah, and of course the drummer makes all the difference in the world with with the band, as you know very well, and you can get different. Everything kind of grows from there. It's like the foundation of the house, so to speak.
Yeah.
So did you find with doing the Human Impact stuff that, you know, it was easy to build up off of that? Were you flexing different muscle groups that maybe you hadn't in a while?
Phil is a little. Playing with Phil's a little different than Vinny. With Vinny, we would do odd time signatures, 7s, 5s, even 13 at one point, stuff like that. And he had a real knack for straightening that out and making that really into a groove, kind of.
Yeah.
Even though it was an odd time signature, he found a way to really make it smooth and make it work. Whereas with Phil, things are he approaches it from a very different way. It's he really takes it apart and makes it almost more mathematic. You know, even like a 3 or a 5 can seem really mathematic with Phil, whereas with Vinny it would have been very straight. You know, so. Yeah.
Well, and it's interesting too that with Vinny's stuff versus Charlie's stuff, like Charlie was more like almost tribal and spastic, right? I mean,
yeah. I mean, Charlie was great. Charlie was great.
Totally
but tempo-wise, sometimes it would go up and down. Great drummer, phenomenal drummer, incredible. And I wish he had lived to really develop into the drummer he was going to be. But it's just like you were saying. It's just very different. It's just a very different approach. Charlie was tons of fills all the time, and in a very smooth way. And when Vinny first joined Unsane, he was trying to do so many fills when his superpower may be smoothing things out and not and really making them heavier, with a sort of more straightforward bash, So it's like you're saying, every drummer's different. Like playing with Will, I played with some really great drummers, like Will Carroll and Cutthroats was phenomenal.
I was going to mention Cutthroats tonight because I actually saw you guys play a couple times in the Bay Area where I spent the vast majority of my life, and I came in with no actual context that I actually didn't know that you were the Unsane guys. I was like, oh, I just thought that was a good band that I'd never heard of bore, which, hey, what can I say? I'm not always that clued.
But yeah, Will, I mean, that really changes things too. Will is like a grown prodigy. You know what I mean? Like, he's just been good his whole life and really super fun to play with, but ballistic, man. He's a ballistic drummer. So, that kicked that band into just crazy over the top stuff. Every drummer's different.
So, and what about Patrick on the UXO record, which I think is something that kind of flew under a lot of people's radar, but very, very cool record. Actually came up extemporaneously a few years ago on this show, and I was like, oh yeah, that. And that's...
Yeah, Patrick's great too. Another very good drummer. That whole project was really, Steve had a studio in his house, and I had known Steve for a long time, and I was going to Maine, hang out, see my girlfriend's family or something, and I had mentioned that to Steve, and he was like, "Oh yeah, come by, and we'll just write a bunch of shit." So we did that, and then we did a few live shows, but Steve at the time, he didn't know it, but he had Lyme's disease.
Oh, really? For real?
Yeah,
oh my God,
yeah.
I had no idea.
He had it for like months, I guess. But so he was just beaten down by this, by illness.
Yeah, that's horrific. That's a full life change sort of disease.
Yeah, totally. So that kind of shut that down at that point. Then I went back to doing Unsane again for a while, But again, that was like somebody I wanted to work with, again, a sort of life accomplishment thing.
Well, there certainly was a corollary between, if not exact execution, like sense of purpose and similar places that you guys were coming from.
Yeah, totally. And
so
we had toured with Today's the Day a bunch, multiple times. So of course, it makes sense.
Yeah. So what did you give any thought to, like, when you're making, so a new band is often defined by things that have little to do with the actual content of the music because of the world that we live in. The visuals for the record, very different from anything Unsane, which is not that hard because Unsane had a very iconic visual image of its own, which is usually very violent and eye-catching.
Blood.
Yeah, yes. Lots of blood, lots of...
I mean, that was all horror-based. That was from when we very first started out. Me and Pete had established this sort of ethic of, yes, we're always going to use blood. It's going to be real blood. And we mixed in a few real, actual photos of gore, of real stuff.
Right. The first record, it was the dude that was decapitated in the subway train.
Yeah, right? And that was real. And then Scattered, Smothered and Covered was a real one as well. But I mean, part of doing that was the fun was making the covers, because we were guys who were doing early on, working together, doing prosthetic effects, stuff like that. We just were horror movie freaks.
Sure. I mean,
with Human Impact, I mean, given the sort of overall theme, we had talked about doing urban sprawl, and just really showing that in one way, And then Jim had come up with this whole turn the city upside down kind of thing, and then we wanted to sort of show a sort of a globalized sort of message as well. So then you get the black outline of the planet. So
right, and again, there's sort of this manner of shorthand that happens with album art, and it used to be, all encompassing back when that's the only thing you really had to go on. If you're like in a record store, you'd look at it and you see like, oh my god. Which
I think this is in that same sort of ethic, same sort of genre is sort of, if you just picked up the record and looked at the cover and then listened to the record while you, like when I was a kid, you would like stare at the record cover while you listened to it, it would work. It is completely in theme with what's being said on that record.
Totally. Well, and I mean, there were records that I would get just because I thought the record cover looked cool. I would be like, I don't know what this sounds like, but it has to be awesome if it looks like this, And
yeah.
And I think with the Human Impact stuff, it definitely, it's very clear that like that's a way different vibe, even if you don't know the pedigree of everyone that's involved. And I mean, did you spend a lot of time thinking about how that was going to be presented? Was it sort of just like, let's just make something cool and not worry about it?
No, I mean, Phil had done a lot of the Swan stuff, sort of layout stuff for the Swans.
Okay.
So me and Jim and Phil were like bouncing stuff just back and forth, and whatever appealed to us really was what was going on. We actually had a different sort of cover. It was same sort of theme, but slightly different. It was more sort of red and yellow, and then Jim came up with the whole sort of futuristic lighting situation. There's like this hardcore urban at night kind of lighting thing going on. That really appealed to me anyway. I thought that was so cool. So it was kind of like just throwing a bunch of ideas with a similar theme around, and then just, deciding on the one you like best. Sure.
And talk to me about logistics for this band, like getting everybody together to play, to write, like things along those lines. Like
it's actually been really easy. Okay. Me and Jim both have home studios, so we tend to write a bunch of crap and sort of prepare for when we get together with the guys. Everybody gets together. I fly out, I stay with Jim, and we all hang out for a few weeks and then go into the studio. So we come in with a bunch of stuff prepped. And actually, there was one where I was like, okay, let's see what Phil and Chris have got, and didn't prep, and just see what they come up with. Which it's kind of cool because then we have a few weeks to kind of just hang out and play 5 days a week and see what comes out of that, which has gone really well. The sound has really firmed up from when we originally started. Originally, we were sort of throwing a ton of ideas out there, and then just editing. You know what I mean? And now,
right, take out the less good stuff, find what's
just cut out the weak shit and go with the strong stuff. But at this point, like we have Contact, that single that we just released, which we kind of had to release at this point. Because it was written before the COVID-19 thing hit.
I wanted to talk about that. It's a little bit prescient. Not even a little bit. It's fairly prescient.
I mean, I can tell you about that. But so we have four new ones that we had done in a session, and now things have really just gelled with the band. So it's kind of like we just show up and work on what we got, and it's coming out better and better, really exponentially with this band. It's kind of amazing. We have definitely not hit our peak. So Contact was one of those, and those are all maybe next record, maybe an EP coming out. We're not sure. We're waiting for this whole, virus to blow over, and hopefully, I mean, we've already had to cancel tour with Yob, a short West Coast thing with Yob.
Yeah.
And we are supposed to go out, tour the States in September, and then Europe November, December. So we'll see what happens.
And you guys, with that single Contact, you were donating proceeds of that to COVID-19 relief, if I remember right? For
completely donating any money we could possibly make to help this effort out. And then Jim sourced all the video, or not all of it, but a majority of the footage. He kind of put a call out for video.
For the video, yeah,
on
for the
internet.
video you're talking about, right?
Yeah, to see how people are living now, and I just did an interview with him where he was talking about how it's interesting because this is such a crazy thing in human history, but at the same time, when you source video from people, there is some stuff that's sort of sensational, like there were hospital workers who sent us shit. But then a majority of it is really just quiet, calm, silent, So it's interesting to hear him talk about how he had to put all this together for the video for that, because he wanted to source things to sort of show the new reality, the
new normal.
The new normal, so to speak. And I think he did a great job. It's really, really hard to put a bunch of pastoral settings together and make an interesting video.
Well, yeah, and it's something that it's very much of its time and therefore somewhat purposely ephemeral, but also just, if you think about it, no matter which way this goes, this is going to be an artifact in time, and to have all that in one place, set to a timely song is kind of an amazing thing.
Yeah, I know. I'm with you. I think that's really cool. I think it's really good to do. I was a little hesitant initially. I had written the song, obviously months before this hit.
Yeah.
The lyrics anyway, the whole thing pretty much. And it was done. It was a wrap. We had it mastered, and then the COVID-19 started to hit, and I mentioned to Jim and Mark at Ipecac, I was like, hey guys, this song is about something extremely similar to what's going on right now. And do we want to even put this out now? You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Is this a good thing to put this out? Do you want to just slap people in the
too
face
much?
with more reality? You know what I'm saying? People are going to be fucking sick of hearing about viruses being transmitted around the globe. But we had no choice. The way I looked at it, I was thinking there may be some serious backlash, but to release it and use inclusion,
Yeah. I mean, you literally made a call for people to, hey, submit footage for this.
Yeah, totally.
There's some fantastic and really amazing stuff that's in there that, I'm not sure it would necessarily be platformed in this specific way, but it's fascinating to have that put down the pipe that
and
way.
I think down the line in history, not that anyone would even know this fucking song or anything, but I think we've done something really cool just down the line. I think it's kind of like, it turned, because I was thinking, do you wait to release it? You know what I mean? Instead of just this fucking slap of reality on people, do you wait to release it? But no, because then it's just old hat, just get it out there. Do what you were originally going to do and tough it out, But I think it's worked out. I think it's gone okay. Obviously we are not trying to capitalize on a virus.
No,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, that would be.
And any cent, every penny that we make, which is obviously not much, anything is being donated. So it's it's really just something that was sort of a foreshadowing of what's coming, and unfortunately happened to hit right as it hit. So what can you do?
It's just a dark serendipity in that way.
Yeah, totally.
So I mean, speaking of human impact, have you know people that have been impacted? I mean, other than having a quarantine, like everybody.
Will Carroll almost died. Will Carroll from Cutthroats. He was in the hospital. He was in ICU for 11 days. Yeah. He just got out, I don't know, maybe 5 days a week ago or something. But yeah, thank God, man. He almost died. He was on tour with Death Angel in Europe.
I was going to say Death Angel, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And they came back from Europe, and I think two, maybe 3 of them got it. So.
Oh man, jeez, and that was with Testament and Exodus, I think. Is that?
Oh yeah, I think so.
Man, that just goes to show you how this pandemic can affect folks that just
very directly. I mean, it was kind of weird because the record release show we really thought was going to be canceled. The St. Vitus Human Impact record release show.
Yeah.
I think it was on the March 14th.
Yeah, it was like right on the cusp. It was like right there.
Yeah, totally. I think we may have been the last show to go on, you know, in New York at that time. Who knows? But we thought it was going to be canceled. We were almost positive. And then they were like, look, we'll do a live streaming. So we were like, okay, cool. We'll play it anyway, even if no one's there. We'll just live stream it and do the show. Turns out people showed up, which was cool, and I hope that wasn't to anyone's detriment. But apparently there was a girl there that I know who I didn't actually talk to at the show, but apparently Phil and Chris were talking to her. I don't think they didn't get sick, but apparently she came down with it not long after that. So it's very direct. It's like right in your face. Yeah, we did not think that show was going to happen. And obviously did not think anybody would be there, but it actually turned out there were some people there.
Well, and it's crazy because I've been doing a ton of these shows because it's literally all I can do. I can't go on tour, you know. And
yeah,
it's been a correlating factor that not only has everyone, you know, had tour dates cancel and, you know, not been able to do important things like record releases and things along those lines, but just having that uncertainty of, you know, everyone's saying, like, people that were out being like, yeah, you know, we were, you know, didn't seem like it was like that big of a deal. And then, you know, 12 hours later, it seemed like a pretty big deal.
Yeah, which was kind of the case after that March 14th show. You know, within like a day or two after that, everything got locked down. I think it was the next day, really.
I mean, when you think about, and it's something where, for me, you wish there was an adult in the room with this kind of thing. And it's absolutely infuriating to have a situation where everyone's kind of just going by their own thing. You have some states are implementing quarantines. You know, some are dragging their heels on it for whatever reason because I don't feel that they're immune. I don't understand the rationale behind that.
Yeah, I don't either.
And it's
obliviousness.
I think it's just reprehensible that it's put down for individual people to make their own decisions, because I don't necessarily know if the average human being is well equipped or qualified to do that.
Yeah, to really understand what's going on. I mean, yeah, I'm with you.
I mean, I wouldn't say that your music necessarily ever had a sunny worldview. But I mean, what are your thoughts on, you know, without getting too political about it necessarily, but what are your thoughts on all this right now? Like, where do you think we're going?
Oh, God. I mean, who knows? You know, I think the last serious pandemic was 1918, right?
Swine flu, right?
Or something. Yeah, I think so. So I just think generationally, people were not really prepared. You know what I mean? Like, there was SARS, and there were a couple of more minor cases of this. Right. Who knows? It's really just with the way our society has changed and become more global and everything, it's socially and financially. I don't think anybody really knows. You know, what is going to be the financial fallout after all this blows over? You know, I mean, this is so it's kind of a, you know, it's a new thing. It's something, you know, the human race has not seen before. So we'll see. There's no predicting, you know, and it's just I mean, I don't think the people who are or were dragging their heels on reacting to the whole thing even knew the depth, you know. So, you know, who's to say? It's not for me to sort of, you know, judge anyone on what's going on. You know, I mean, for example, we played a pandemic show, you know?
Right, yeah. And not because you're like, yeah, we're going to, you know, screw this. It was just...
No, like we all have been. We've been in bands. All of us have been in touring bands a majority of our mature lives, and understand you can't cancel. You know, that's just not something that us as musicians do. You know, we can't. So we had to go through with it. You know, which I'm sure a lot of people have felt that pressure. You know, in their various sort of employment opportunities as well. You know, you can't be the one to say, no, I'm not coming. You can't be the one to put your foot down in a pandemic, you know, which is horrible, but you can't. So, you know.
Yeah, sorry, that's not exactly a cheery topic, but it's obviously it's something that it's
no. I mean,
it's the elephant in the room,
that's
right?
The reality. Yeah,
it's always there, whether we're thinking about it actively or not.
Yeah, no shit.
So, talk to me about for when you're writing stuff and coming up with a guitar. Like, do you have any things to get you out of a rut? Or get you out of like the headspace that where you're like, yeah, that's fine, like whatever, that isn't like where I want it to be. Like what's that process like when you're writing stuff? Is it different for this band than it was for Unsane or Cutthroat's 9? Like what's?
Yeah, I mean it is different. It's similar but different. I tend to and have with everything. I write a lot of music. Like I write a ton of shit and then sort of see what suits what I'm doing. So there'll be weird shit that's kind of electronic Jim has been really good. Working with Jim has been really good in that I'll send him shit that he that is completely inappropriate, and he'll be like, okay, this aspect of that is cool. This is cool, but kick it up a notch. Like, believe it or not, Jim is actually encouraging me to kick things up into a more distorted, kind of over-the-top scenario. A lot of stuff I've written, like, in the past couple of years, really, there's more. I've gotten more electronic, and also wanted to use more low dynamic stuff, and there's been a certain amount of, strangely enough, sort of melancholy weirdness,
Sure.
that I like, but at the same time, there's a way to approach it. You don't want to just completely be wimpy and just have this. Some of it, I would. With Jim, I don't edit.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas with everyone else, I always have. I always come in with something that's very strong. That I'm like, here, guys, this is my idea. What do you think?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas with Jim, I just kind of send him tons of shit. And then he kind of says, oh, this is good, which has been really cool because some things that I would have never used, now I use maybe in a slightly different way than they were originally done. But at the same time, I'm using different shit than I would have normally.
Sure.
So I just tend to write a ton of different shit and then edit. That's and Jim does the same thing. Jim really does. There's some stuff where... he sends me shit, and I'm like, oh, okay, this is cool. Can you distort this and do this to this? And we work well together. There's a real openness to the way we work.
Right, and it seems like you guys are developing like a sort of statement of intent and ethos with this band that is got its own identity aside
totally.
from other things.
Yeah, there is. And Jim thinks differently in terms of time signatures and a lot of phrasing of stuff because while we've been friends, we have not worked together in decades, So his approach, and he's done a lot of film soundtrack stuff, and so his approach is very different from mine, which is really great because then I feed off his ideas, he feeds off mine. So, I come from a seriously guitar-driven world.
Of course, yeah. I think that's
yeah. So he can take some of that and then change that, mutate that into an electronic sort of phrase. It's great. It's really cool. It's like creatively, I'm not alone anymore. Which is good.
Sure, which is always a nice thing when you're making art.
Yeah. So it changes your approach. Back to your original thing. It does change your approach, because you're fielding different ideas from a different place. Before I would just write tons of shit and then just cut all the fat and bring in the shit that I think is good. Now it's kind of just bouncing crazy ideas off each other all the time.
Right. There's a back and forth. So with a band like Unsane, were you grinding out demos and sending to the guys who were just banging it out in the practice room? Like what was the main process?
Well, towards the end, really, I wrote, I kind of had this whole thing where I was like, okay, well, Dave's in Italy, and I don't hear from him much, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna just write a fucking record by myself, and then Dave can write some songs if he wants, whatever he wants to do. I'm totally open to anything, but I'm just gonna consider this sort of a personal, you know, goal, and just write the best record I possibly can. And then we can cut whatever we want, and whatever Dave has goes in there too. You know what I mean? So It was kind of like, it was not the back and forth. You know what I mean? As much as I wish it was, it wasn't. And then we get together, and
You're talking about Sterilized now, that last one that was
Okay. Yeah, the last Unsane record.
Cool.
So, you know, I kind of considered a personal goal, and then we got together and we hash out ideas, and, you know, that it just kind of came together that way. And not much was really changed once we got together, you know. I mean, there were a couple of Dave's songs came in, which was good, thank God.
Yeah.
But a majority, you know, again, a majority of was the stuff I had written before.
Since we're talking about that record, I was thinking also about the record before that, the one Wreck, where you guys cover that Flipper song, which is awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Because I absolutely adore Flipper, and I find it. I find covers of them fascinating because they're, you know, because the looseness to Flipper is sort of like part of the appeal, right?
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah.
But I love.
And I'd seen Flipper when I was a kid. Like, I've gone to see Flipper throughout their various,
many
various incarnations. Yeah. And I had seen them really early on with Will and stuff. You know, so. When they played that live, when I was a kid, I just loved it. So that was kind of another, you know, personal achievement there that I wanted to do. And I actually had to, didn't have to, but I approached them and said, guys, are you cool with this? You know, can we, you know, and even sent them the song once we'd done it to say, you know, get their approval and everything. And they were totally into it. So it was cool.
Well, and from a very different place, but similar-ish sort of worldview in some ways.
Oh, totally.
With Unsane,
yes,
you know?
yes. Oh, yeah. Completely.
It fit very well.
They really influenced me when I was a kid into this whole, like, you can have your own personal, very cynical opinion of the world and people, and you don't have to be, you know, there's no reason to try to please people and be commercial. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, just do your thing, and if you have this bad attitude, feel free to, you know, enjoy it.
Well, yeah, and that's something that holds true for, you know, I think everything that you've done that I've heard. It definitely has its own sense of, we're going to create this world, and anyone that wants to come in on this world is welcome to it, but we're not especially interested in anything outside of it, because it's, you know, that stuff mostly sucks.
I mean, my sort of negative attitude about mainstream music and stuff, it's not, I'm surprised we got anywhere, to be honest with you. I'm surprised I've been able to be a musician in my life with my bad attitude. I'll be honest with you.
Well, you guys have Unsane had like almost like a cult-like following, right? You know, that's sort of an overused term, but kind of a bummer vibe band in a very big way, like in a celebratory bummer vibe, but a bummer vibe nonetheless.
A celebratory bummer vibe. Nice. Yeah, totally. It's not, I mean, there's a certain positivity to it, but it's way down in there somewhere, and you got to kind of look to find it. You know?
There's like that light, that very small pinprick of light at the end of the tunnel that's buried underneath everything else. Do you hear the influence of any of the Unsane stuff in other bands, especially like other, you know, working bands in the underground that maybe are not household names necessarily?
I don't know. No, I mean, I like with Relapse, when we were on Relapse way back when, Matt would like send me shit and be like, yeah, this band sounds so Unsane, and we're getting demos from these guys, and all these bands sound like Unsane. I don't hear it, man. I'll be honest with you. I never know. I don't know. I'm not sure what it would be. You know, we have a very specific sound, so it's kind of, you know, I'm not sure who. Maybe, well, no, not even. I don't really hear it.
Well, because I mean, there is a certain preponderance of what I like to call dudes yelling noise rock that's around there?
Yeah.
Is that what they were referring to? Like, because I think there's.
I guess so. I guess so. Yeah, kinda.
I think there's certain sonic elements that, especially, maybe the what are considered like the more touch point albums for Unsane. Like, so just like how there's bands that, they sound like the Melvins in that they do one of the 15, 16 things that the Melvins do, and then that's like what the whole band sounds like. Maybe it's something along those lines where it's like, hey, this.
Yeah, I guess so, but no, I don't know. I don't really hear it. If I've had that happen a bunch where somebody's like, man, listen to this, sounds so insane. I'm like, I don't know.
Does it?
I don't know. I guess I'm just looking for something I'm listening for something that I'm not hearing,
Yeah.
That other people will be like, oh yeah, that really sounds like Unsane. But no, to me, no.
Interesting. So what's the plans for Human Impact right now? Like, is this going to be a band that, obviously at some point we're going to hopefully return to some degree of being able to go out and play and tour?
Like I was saying, we've got touring coming up. We have Contact already came out, but we have three others that will come out over the next 4 or 5 months as singles, gearing up for the second record, and then we're just going to tour. We'll be touring. So this will be, this is the primary band for most of us.
Right.
The Swans guys are going to have some work ahead of them, but it is our main band, and we are going to pursue it just as if I the same way I would have Unsane. Just tour like hell, make a lot of music. Yeah, totally.
So when you're thinking about, well, maybe I should ask, do you think about like what bands that you'd want, that you want to play with, or is it more like the idea of we're just gonna play with bands we like,
no idea.
Or because it's a hard band to like match up with, right? I mean, it's not like.
Yeah, I don't know. The stuff. I tend to go with friends.
Yeah, just bands you like and friends, things along those lines.
Yeah, guys I know and guys I know are cool, and other than that, because there have been a few submissions where it's kind of like, oh, do you want to go on tour with this band or this band? I don't know the people, so I'm kind of just check them out and see what they do live, and and see if I personally like it, and then kind of bounce it off the other guys. And there are a lot of voices in that, like I'll say, oh, what about this act? And then Jim will be like, what about this one? And then Phil will be like, oh, what about this one? So and then our booking agent will be like, well, what about this one? This would be really good. So I tend to go with him if possible.
Right.
If the tour manager's into it, then I think that's working. You know what I mean? Like, he's the guy we kind of want to make happy with that. So, yeah, and I try not to tour with any band for too long. I don't want to be on tour for 2 months with the same band. So that's kind of my thing. But no, I would generally go with friends. But honestly, I don't. With the amount of people involved, I don't have that much of a voice. So.
Sure. And is there ever a thought towards wanting to get out of the circuit, for lack of a better term, or a group of bands that you would do with Unsane, because it, maybe it's music that potentially can have a very different audience, or is this? Yeah,
totally. If I think the show would fly, you know what I mean? Because you don't want to have such polar opposites that people just fucking walk off when the opening band.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I know exactly.
But if it seems like it would work and it will expose us to new people, like for example, Unsane going out with Slayer.
Yeah.
Most people would shit to go out with Slayer. I, being a fucking little flipper kid,
yeah,
was like, Slayer, what the hell?
Coming from a very different place than you.
Oh, totally. Yeah, completely. And the Slayer guys were like, when we actually toured with them, Tom Araya was saying to me, he was like, yeah, man, you guys are the only band nobody throws anything at. He was telling me a story about, seriously, about Lemmy getting pelted with cups, like with plastic cups while they're playing and shit. And I was like, oh my God, what a travesty.
Heresy.
I mean, Lemmy of all people,
Come on.
So
Philistines.
that actually worked out, and there were some Slayer guys were actually, and it's all guys basically.
Right, exactly.
We're into
Not a lot of
Unsane,
female
and we
representation.
it's so minimal, the 0.0001%. But so that worked out actually, strangely enough. To me, that seemed very strange. But Dave, our bass player, was super into it. He was like, "Oh my God, we've got to go!" So of course we did it.
Did you find that there were people like Slayer fans that resonated with it? Like, did you?
Oh, totally. Yeah. Later tours after that tour, we would have guys coming up, who saw us with Slayer.
Yeah,
it definitely helped. It was, again, we appealed somehow, God only knows how, to that Slayer audience. Not all of them, obviously, because you're still getting flipped off all the time.
It's
and
baked
people
in, yeah.
I mean, we had this attitude of like, we are just going to fucking full throttle make noise and leave no spots of silence, because you leave any silence in your set and you get Slayer, Slayer, like they just start screaming Slayer right away. So we just went out there, feedbacks blazing, between songs, and just total noise rock for the set. Finish, throw our shit down, and walk off. Like, don't give them the chance to fucking scream at you or to anything. But you just keep the abuse to a minimum, really, is what you're doing there.
Because you're basically, for a lot of these people, you're just in the way of their favorite band. And
totally. They just want you to be done, so Slayer's on. No shit.
And
of course,
there's not a darn thing you can do about it. So all you can do is be your best musical self and do your thing. And if people want to come along, they will, if they are coming with an open mind. And otherwise,
which actually I kind of enjoyed that, actually, in a way, because you were there to make a statement. You know what I mean? Like you really were just going out just blazing, and it was kind of cool. I really enjoyed it. But so that being the point, that yes, I'm open to touring with other bands that would be stylistically different. It's not always a bad thing. It can be horrible, but I have yet to really experience it being really bad. So,
well, that's good. I mean, it's never, like, I think when you're very young, like, it's sort of like that stuff can rolls off more your back a little more, but when you get older and you've been around for a while, it's sort of like you don't even want to put yourself through like any sort of negative experiences if you don't have to sometimes. So it's...
Well, you're a little smarter. You want to sort of minimize the stupidity and negativity,
Yeah, it's always nice. So was there any overlap between Unsane and Human Impact, or was it already kind of going when Unsane was... there
was sort of a touring overlap. Like, me and Jim were shooting ideas back and forth, via internet, for a few months while, I was about to go on tour with Unsane and working on shit with him, and there was some shit, but not in terms of writing. You know what I mean? Like, It was really just touring with Unsane and then writing with Jim. So
you've made it. You're more of a one band. Than
always. I mean, the other bands I've done, I was not doing Unsane at that time. You know what I mean? No, I like to focus. I like to really focus on what I'm doing. That's one thing with working with Jim, is that he's really good at doing like 25 things at once.
Musical multitasking. Yeah.
Oh, totally. And I really just like to knuckle up on the one thing, and just really focus on that.
Chris, it's been great talking to you. The last thing, it's the only canned question I have, but I'd like to hear what folks' answers are, and that's just, why do you do what you do?
I was born to do it. I don't know. I just have my whole life, I've just loved music. Music for me is a way to sort of change my own reality.
Not bad. That's succinct. It's that's good. I like it. Chris, thanks so much for spending time with me, man.
Yeah, sure, man. Thank you.
Right,
thanks for the interview. It was a real pleasure.
All right, take care and stay safe, man.
Yeah, you too. You too.
All right, there he goes, Mr. Chris Spencer. Let's hear another of these Human Impact songs, huh? is November. Was that the self-titled record?
hands to keep, one to break, nothing was seen, no time to react, just a fact, no guarantee. A portrait of greed, taking much more than you need. A portrait of greed, something I don't want to see. Just a portrait of greed, not sure what you have achieved. A portrait of greed, take everything when you leave. Hide what you know, follow through, one way to go. Now how to proceed, knowing that you can't say no. You won't say no. Taking more than you'll need. Unfortunate greed, something I would never see. Just a portrait of greed. It's just like living in the past, and we go downtown to do our shopping.
we discussed, Chris Spencer and I earlier. Before that, we had November by Human Impact off of the self-titled Human Impact record, which is available in all the normal places that you would find music at. So if you're curious, go check that out. Interesting record, definitely different from Unsane. Hopefully you learned a little more about that and where he's coming from with it. And yeah, it's cool. I like it. There you go. This has been another stay-at-home edition of Conan Neutron's Protonic Reversal. Thank you very much. This show airs on Radio Nope, ostensibly Thursdays, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Mountain, 5 p.m. Pacific. These days, pretty much all the time, in an effort to keep everybody sane and home. So safe.
As we come to the close of our broadcast day,
the archives for the free show, radioneutron.com, always free, always.
Farewell transmission.
Patreon.com/Protonic Reversal to get the episodes sooner.
Signing off.
$1 a month will get you there.
Mr. and Mrs. America and all the ships at sea.
Thanks for everyone.
Anyone within the sound of my voice.
Sharing the show around. Letting people know that it's something worth paying attention to.
I've got 50,000 watts of power.
It's a pleasure to be doing this and having these talks. I'm glad people get something out of it.
I want to ionize the air.
Human Impact's all over the internet. Not that hard to find. Instagram, Facebook.
This microphone.
There's a humanimpact.bandcamp.com. Ipecax, the record label. Go check it out.
Can you hear me now? Out
Stay
on
safe.
Route 128, dark and lonely.
Take it easy.
I got my radio on. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Welcome to my top 10. I'd like to thank our sponsor. But we haven't got a sponsor. Not if you were the last man on Earth. She was prepared to prove it. This one goes out to a special girl. But there is no special girl! It's the end of radio. The last announcer plays the last record. The last what? Leaves the transmitter. circles the globe in search of a listener. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Is it really broadcasting if there's no one there to receive? It's the end of radio. As we come to the close of our broadcast day, got my radio on.